Hey, can you, oh, there I am. Can you hear me?
I can. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. It doesn't look like I have permission to share.
Okay.
So
Um,
I assume you don't either.
I was just looking at that. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's grayed out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You hear my dog barking,
I
perhaps?
can, yeah.
All right. I will be. One moment, please.
Yeah, so that's
For
it.
it to be added, but I'll have to
Comes with like,
double check.
yes.
See, you might not be on the listserv
Yeah.
yet.
You got the agenda.
Oh, you did.
So that's what is the,
Mm-hmm.
so, right?
But what I did find out is that
Hey, Becca, can you hear me? And Abby? Okay,
Yes.
audio issues with this owl device that we're using for the camera. It's not like the microphone isn't working, so we use one person's computer and keep it like unmuted. Could one of you try saying something?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay,
Try
you
again.
say something else.
How about now?
Okay, yeah. Cool.
Okay.
So yeah, the audio isn't working through AV camera at all, unfortunately. But we will be able to hear you through Melody's computer.
Okay.
I think.
I also don't have permissions to share, so
Oh, okay. So let me see if I can change that.
Ty texted me yesterday, said he's not gonna be here. Who else was supposed to be here?
Rab said he was going to be here.
Okay. Look, we have our alternate, so we have quorum to call to order.
Yeah.
And then is Patricia the other member?
Yeah, and I haven't heard back from her since the last time I texted and asked. It sounded like she had been in a car accident. Yeah, so I don't know how she's recovering from that.
Well, I guess I will call to order at 6:52 p.m. Are you our secretary now?
I remain the secretary since last time.
Is this recording? Okay.
We won't do anything till you're ready.
You can continue. I'm just making a copy of the last meeting minutes. And it's taking, I think I just got kicked off the internet.
So the first thing that we have on the list is to appoint a zero waste subcommittee liaison. So Maddie, who resigned, was our SAB member that was on that subcommittee. So we need a SAB member to be on that committee. And I know that Cassidy would love to have the SAB member that's in charge of that committee help with agenda and notes and such for their meetings. Do they meet quarterly?
Right now we're meeting monthly, but we
Okay,
can
meeting
change that.
monthly again.
Yeah, the next meeting is next week. They're the first Wednesday of every month.
It's probably good to meet monthly for now and through the summer. As things start to kick up.
It is Cinda Cohen who has been on it the longest, I believe. And then Sandra Bailey just joined again, and I think she'd been on it before. She like organized a cleanup. And Sam Tyndall from Wild Bear, she's their like public engagement person. And then Mikkel, and they are part of Boulder County, so there are like liaison with Boulder County. And Bridget from Green Girl Recycling is technically on it, but I think she's been busy the last few months.
It's a really big subcommittee.
Yeah.
What do they do? That's probably in the title, but I'm just curious as to really.
I think one of the most public facing things events like the Ned Jazz Wine Fest. We stand at the trash cans. As a zero waste volunteer, I've done it too. But I think they were also part of the effort for the in-vessel composter up at the transfer station, as well as public education. And I don't know if there's anything else they're working on for this year. Oh, I guess they're helping with the plastic bag ban information rollout.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
When do they meet?
The first Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. I need to double check that. It's both. They've been wanting to do more in person though. It's at 1 p.m.
Is it here or is it some other one?
We meet at the library right now.
I'm not on any subcommittees right now. I'm hearing no other volunteers. I will volunteer to SAB representative on this subcommittee.
Wonderful.
Will you send me an email reminding me when I need to be there or something?
Yes, I will definitely send you an email. And I'll do the agenda for this one since it's next week.
Okay.
And we can talk more about.
It's this week.
No, sorry, it's next.
That's
week.
right. Okay.
Next week.
It's this coming Wednesday. Let me make sure.
Because today is Thursday, so it's the 5th of March. Yes, there.
Is that done?
I was told that they were waiting to put that in the ground when the ground thaws. But we also have a zero waste subcommittee update on the agenda too, so we can talk more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, right? Was that county? Was that county funding? Yeah, the county funding seems to be generally the easier funding to go after when it's available for projects. I move to appoint Rich to the zero waste subcommittee. And I will call the vote. Yeah. Yes.
Because I think that we have a vacancy, you can then step in as the alternate, as a regular member, while that vacancy is in existence.
Or is it just when there's not quorum?
Well, there's not quorum, so you are the fourth.
So I'm okay. Okay, I second that.
So there's, oh, okay, I see. Without Erica, there's not a quorum.
Yep. So I vote yes
Yes.
Well, I guess that's only 3 votes. Does that count as quorum?
Quorum just means you have enough people to have a vote, and you just need a majority of the people present.
Okay.
But to the extent it will create an issue, I vote yes. Change my abstention to yes.
I mean,
Make it unanimous.
you volunteered. You volunteered on record already, so. Mhm.
I was always told you're supposed to vote for yourself because, you know,
Seems like a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I was always told to abstain too, so it's what it is. Okay, then we can move on to the Partners in Energy presentation.
Yeah, so Becca, I tried to make you a presenter. Are you able to share your screen now?
I am. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing.
And
Is that possible?
There's usually a remote.
yes, I haven't done that before.
Well, it's a good time to start.
They just left you here on your own? No,
Sort of a-
Issues.
but usually there's another staff who's more familiar with all
Peter,
this.
typically, yeah. I don't see a remote.
to the degree to which, despite all, like, I would love a theory on why, despite all of our technological advancement, it still remains challenging to figure. Like,
You know,
like up to the TV.
if
There's
you know,
like,
you know, I bet you should cast these.
yeah,
Like I'm at a monthly thing we do at the library, and we cast to the library thing. And
Yeah,
it's kind of funny because at the end of it, the leader does a trivia thing, and he'll change it on his laptop, but it like does it like it's like a minute to change it on the TV. I don't know why that is.
see if I can change wireless display. This, yeah.
HDMI or computer?
But that's a good sign, you know. HDMI. If you have the cable, you can do that, right?
Yeah, we have the.
That's an HDMI cable.
We can just pass with the computer though.
Yeah.
This is not.
Looks like.
No.
Can y'all see my,
Right, it's not.
can
You
y'all
know,
see
that's
my
a,
screen?
An HDI extender.
I have a, are we looking for the dongle thing? Often.
Yeah, you do. It's not in this box.
Hermione, it's like Hermione Granger's bag.
I have never done it.
No, both are sitting on my desk at home.
I don't know what I just did. I want to get rid of this. Get rid of this.
It's good. It's kind of short. It's not a good, so there's two things on the screen. It has two options for, well, probably three, because it's got HDMI 2 and 3. So there's probably a 1. It's probably AV.
There's no way that.
There's no way. No. All right. I withdraw my request. We don't need that. Trying to be technical support.
Exit split screen. That's
It's more HDMI ports.
okay. Can you guys see that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that works.
We'll just see.
I'm gonna get really close so that I can see if I'm typing.
Is Becca or Abby, can you unmute and just test your, test the sound?
Hello.
Okay,
Can you hear
can
us
everyone? Turn it up.
Well enough.
well enough? We'll try to be really loud.
Do you mind if I turn the brightness up all the way? Great, thanks.
All right, we're ready.
All right. I am going to kick us off today. My name is Abby Neal, and I'll introduce myself more formally in a couple slides. But I am with Excel Energy's Partners in Energy program, and we are here today to talk about the Town of Nederland's renewable energy target and the data behind that. So, Becca, if you'll go to the next slide. We have been working with CAS to look at the town's renewable energy goal. And as a result, we wanted to inform you of some changes to the data that is being used. So we made an adjustment to include some community electricity use, as well as some changes to how the solar data is tracked. And we'll go over both of those options and let you know what we did. And then we're also going to discuss some discrepancies in the solar PV data. We do have a recommended course of action for that, but there's just some discrepancies there, and we want to confirm the right approach with you all. So if you go to the next slide, as I said, my name is Abby Neal. I'm the planning lead on the community facilitator side for Partners in Energy. With me today is Becca Stock, and I'm recovering from a cold and have this annoying cough, so I apologize for that. Laura Robinson is also supporting the effort, and then on the Excel Energy side, we have Sophia Troutman and Nick Cole as well. And on the next slide, some of you might be familiar with this, but just in case there's some folks who are not, Partners in Energy has been supporting Netherlands since 2018. In 2018, we created the Energy Action Plan, where the Town of Netherlands 100% renewable energy goal came from. We've also been working with the town in 2023 to create an EV action plan. That's not the focus of today's conversation, but we just wanted to acknowledge that that work has been completed. And then since that 2018 plan, we've been working with the town on a variety of other projects through what we call graduate support, this being one of them. And so today we're going to do that deep dive into the renewable energy data and tracking and alignment to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of how that goal is being calculated. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cass to provide an overview of the 2023 data.
So if I can interrupt real quick, Abby, it's Erica Thorley.
Hey, Erica.
The action plan was after we had already adopted 100% commitment. So this actually came as a result of that 100% commitment that the town had done. And the initial proposal was 2030 for 100%, and Mayor Chris Larson at the time cut it to 2025. Just wanted to just share that background.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know if everyone's looked at the tracking tool, but Steve Boulder created this spreadsheet in 2017, and it has different data that includes Excel Energy, renewable, their renewable percentage, as well as any subscriptions that we have. And it basically is our way of tracking the percent of electricity that is coming from renewables in Netherlands. And so we've been trying to go through each of the sources and just figure out where are these numbers coming from? Are they accurate? And is there anything that we might be missing? So we have the data that is tracked being our annual electricity use. That comes from Excel's community energy reports. we have the Xcel Energy certified renewable energy percentage. So that is within Xcel's like 100% energy. There's a percentage that is renewable, and that comes from their operations. And so we account for that in our percentage of renewable energy. And then we have renewable connect subscriptions as well, and wind source subscriptions. On-site solar PV is going to be people who install solar panels at their homes or on businesses, and then they have a number of, or two different kind of ways that you can track that. So there's non-solar rewards, which is what we count, because that is included in Xcel's renewable percentage. Subscribe to solar rewards, their electricity created from their solar panels is put into or is counted in Xcel's renewable energy percentage.
So just,
yeah,
like if I do net metering, that's what you're talking about, the solar rewards. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I use, let's say, like most of the stuff that my house generates is powering my house or whatever. Is that considered part of the, that doesn't even really get counted because it doesn't.
Nobody has insight into that.
Nobody has insight into that. So there might be a bunch of solar being generated that we don't really know about. And it's only the stuff, and the excess doesn't count for the town because the stuff I do the net metering on that just negative for Xcel and positive for me just counts toward their statewide total.
Which does count towards our percentage renewable because it's included in their overall renewable energy. So we're just not double counting it because they're already counting it in their renewable.
So when you get your bill,
yeah,
when it shows total energy used, it only shows any you pulled from the grid. It doesn't show any power you produce.
So yeah, but
I think Becca can probably speak to
because at the carousel, our bill does show that.
Depends on how you have it set up. So
Yeah.
if you actually have an inverter behind the meter, then you can actually roll it back and use what you're creating and keep it as DC. But as soon as it's beyond the meter, it goes to AC. Is that alternating?
right, not having a bird. So
yeah, I think Becca can add more.
I just wanted to clarify on that. That's exactly how the power works, is whatever's behind the meter is sort of secret. And you don't really know what's being used and what's being generated unless you've got sub-metering. But from a renewable energy perspective, if you participate in the solar rewards program, then you basically sell the RECs that are generated by your system, which is calculated based on system size and location, some other things, to Xcel for that rebate. So if you don't get a rebate for your solar and you're just on net metering, then you keep the RECs and you don't participate in solar rewards. You just show up in this net metering number. If you sold them to Xcel for a rebate, then they are claiming those RECs and that shows up in the renewable energy percentage.
So let's just assume that for sake of argument, in a 1 month period, I generate 1,000 kilowatt hours from my home system and I use 750. So in the summer, these are just arbitrary numbers. So I export 250 to Xcel and I just power myself 750. And in the winter, maybe I go back to like a net of 0, which is what my goal generally is. So the stuff that 750, do you like figure out an estimate for how much that might be and include that in something, or is that just completely lost?
Well, it is basically accounted for and reduced energy pulled from the grid.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess, yeah.
So it's not really lost, but it's not really like metered anywhere. No one's tracking it, which is part of why the solar is tricky.
It just doesn't show up as energy at all.
Yeah,
correct.
You need it's like you need a sub-meter to do that. To be, or like if you
I can just pull up my app on my phone.
Right, you can see it, but it's not public.
Yeah.
And I know you're not the only one in town. It's like that.
I think pretty basically every solar system you see does that. It makes no sense to do it otherwise.
Yeah. Can I ask a high level question as we get into this? what is the best, like, slide 1 or slide 2? What are we trying to get out of this discussion? Because like there's a modest, at least moderately complex spreadsheet. And if we all want to understand how those components are calculated, like kind of what is the goal of this discussion?
We're going to continue with the presentation, and they're going to talk about kind of the differences in data that we were able to determine from different, like using Excel as a source for like their entire consumption data, because they're going to talk about it. It's coming up.
We've got a couple recommendations on changes to the calculations that we've got going forward. And so 2 of them are kind of pretty straightforward, that are just best practices that we just kind of want to inform that those changes are happening. We do want to talk through this solar PV question some more, because there's conflicting data without great sources. So that's where we really want you guys' input there.
And yeah, definitely. And I'll just say one more thing before we go on. Is just that with the non-solar rewards, we have permit data that says how big system sizes are, but because like that is not, that's behind the meter, it's not like sent to us, or it might not even be tracked in any way. We cannot include exact numbers, so we have to make assumptions based on how many arrays we know are installed like at households, and we can get that number from Excel, and we are comparing Excel's number of like non-solar rewards PV installations with the number of permits that we also have filed at the town.
Sorry. I assume those permits have KW sizing?
Yes. Yeah.
And when you build a system, you know exactly how many.
Yeah, so we can, but we're not sure, like, yeah, I guess we're not sure like the actual kilowatt hours. You know,
Yeah.
But you know, kilowatts maximum.
Right. Yeah.
Dependent upon usage and sun.
Yes. Well,
usually you build it to get the maximum.
So yeah, they made an assumption in the spreadsheet, and that's, I can talk more about that if we want, but I think maybe, do you want to move on to the next slide?
Yeah, we'll get into the PV stuff at the end because it's the most complicated. So we could save our time for that. So this here is sort of an eye chart. I just wanted to document the sources that we looked at. So we were basically looking for data consistency across the sources and alignment with best practices as far as accounting goes in the spreadsheet, making sure everything's good. So we looked at the tracking spreadsheet that Cass just shared that you guys have been using for many years. We looked at the participation data that we track through Partners in Energy, because we get downloaded data from your community. We provide dashboards twice a year for you all. So we looked at that. And then we also looked at these community energy reports that are public data published by Xcel Energy, separate from Partners in Energy. So Partners in Energy communities get their own dashboards, but then all communities get these community energy reports. And then, as Cass alluded to, we looked at solar PV permit data from the town itself to help us collaborate on that one. And then we compared all those data points that Cass just went through, so I won't go through those again. And here's the big story, is this table shows all the data points we compared, the values we found in each of those reports. The ones I have highlighted here in gray are where we found discrepancies, and the ones that we're going to talk about today. So the first one I want to talk about is the annual consumption one. This one is pretty easy in that, the community energy reports public document excludes at least one premise for privacy reasons. So there's rules about if one premise makes up more than 15% of the total energy use in that subset, it has to get excluded. So since Netherlands is a pretty small town, there are some that get excluded for that reason. through the Partners in Energy effort, we did get data waivers from those entities to allow us to include their data in that grouping. So you can see here, the community energy data report has about 10 million kilowatt hours for 2023. The Partners in Energy data has 10.8, and that discrepancy is that large user or users that signed those data waivers. So going forward, we were recommending that you use the Partners in Energy data annually for that total consumption, as it's a more accurate number. It's about an 8% change in total electricity use for 2024 data, so which changes your total renewable energy, percent from 69% to 67%. Any questions or comments about that adjustment?
Is that 8% increase like typical, or is it unusually high or low for us?
That is the change in energy use by including those user or users that were excluded from the community energy report. So it's not a year-to-year change. It's a change from adding those premises back in.
Okay.
So there's one or two businesses that use 8% of.
Right.
Correct. Yep.
Are we using zip code? Are we using library district?
For the spreadsheet, it's just town of Nederland.
Correct. Yep. So for Partners in Energy, some of you have the historical context there. Originally, we were using the library district. For this goal, we are using the town boundary, and we actually have, we're tracking for both of those for you guys for Partners in Energy. So the next one I want to talk about, I'm going to jump down to the bottom, is the community solar number. The numbers don't totally align with each other, but the major recommendation here is that the energy produced at these community solar installations is actually already accounted for in Xcel Energy certified renewable percent. And so this energy use should be excluded from your calculations to avoid double counting those renewable energy.
Can you clarify what that community solar is? Because that's all community solar garden subscriptions, right?
Correct. Yep. Yep.
So just for y'all's knowledge, right? It's like we've done a lot of community solar garden campaigns to get people to sign up, including all the municipal operations for the town, which were all on the Oakleaf Community Solar Garden contract in 2018. And so the initial goal with the 100% was actually to look at additionality,
Right.
not renewable energy credit. Because of that, it's actually an equity issue from my perspective when you don't include those community solar garden subscriptions, because that's the only option renters have, right? For people that have trees on their property, we're limited in our options for Xcel territory until we have like community choice aggregation or other opportunities from the Public Utility Commission.
Yeah. I'm pretty with you on this, as well as like the whole point of community solar is to get new projects made, and if Xcel is claiming those projects, that's okay. But if we're going to go out and advocate, and like that's one of the major pathways to higher energy penetration, I think having a nuanced way of how we double count that, I'm okay with some inconsistencies if we're thoughtful about it in that respect.
And that was built into the CCAPstone spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if you decide to go that direction, I would recommend adjusting the wording in your goal to make that clear, because renewable energy has a very specific legal definition based on RECs. And so I think the city and county of Denver for a while had or has something similar where they talked about working to get a certain amount of clean energy on the grid to cover the power used in the city or something like that. It was a little more succinct, but I would just be careful about using, 100% renewable energy goal without accounting for the RECs, because that could be misleading.
We have calculated what RECs would look like too.
Yeah, we have I would say several years of staff minutes where we've pretty clearly documented and discussed that when we talk about 100% renewable energy, we aren't necessarily talking about all RECs, and that we are more talking about the incentive to push more energy by Nederland residents, renewable energy onto the grid.
We use
Um,
additionality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's part of why it's in this spreadsheet also is because we are the town of Nederland, so we're trying to look at what have our efforts accomplished in
Yeah.
getting people to sign up for these things, and so we should be able to subtract whatever that amount is that's already accounted for out of the Excel portion.
Because it's
And
such a
so-
low percentage for them.
Yep, and then count it in its own separate line, basically, pull it out, extrapolate it.
Back in, Abby, what is like the city and county of Boulder doing? Because at the time when we first established 100%, they were also doing additionality, not renewable energy credits.
You know, I'm not sure, but I could look into that for you. The other thing, just to add to this conversation, is you currently don't take credit for any on-site solar PV systems that use solar rewards because the RECs have been sold to Excel and are included in that renewable energy percentage. So if you decide to use community solar, I think you should be consistent and also include those.
Yes, I agree. So like the carousel and the solar we have would show up on its different line, yeah, as well as here.
Open. I think you could also treat on-site consumed solar, like the assumption for on-site consumed is different than that which is sold to Excel, or that is already paid for via the solar rewards program, or not, depending on how, like, site consumed solar is like Excel doesn't account for that, whereas Excel is accounting for the solar rewards, right? And so like there's extra additionality for site consumed.
For solar rewards, they do count the amount consumed on site. It is metered.
But for the non-solar.
Oh, okay, so they're metering.
Richard's energy that he's producing and using on site.
Right.
So here's another
Wait,
can of
but-
worms.
You don't have solar?
I do, but
Okay,
but
yeah, so we're saying the same
like,
thing.
if you look at my energy usage for today, I imported a lot, but I also generated a lot. When I generated a lot, I wasn't importing at all. So that was all. Everything in my house was powered by my system when it's in that portion of the day. So, but I'm also selling. So it's both.
Mhm.
And here's another thing that, and maybe Abby and Becca, you can speak to this a little better. I've heard grumblings that Excel's calculation of the non-solar rewards and the solar rewards are not as accurate as it could be. And maybe we'll talk about this with the PV discrepancy, but do you guys have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so we could talk about the PV discrepancy and how that shows up. On-site solar, kind of across the board from Excel and other entities that are trying to track this, is traditionally not been tracked well. And so it's kind of a generally poor data source as compared to other things for the reasons that we talked about. A lot of it's behind the meter and you can't really like calculate a lot of the, you can't put your finger on that data. So I do want to, let me go on to the solar PV question. It sounds like you guys, you know, are generally feeling like maybe the RECs are not as important. I think that needs to be some consistency on how you talk about the goal, and we could bring some language from Denver and Boulder to help you guys do that. But I do think there's some inconsistencies in the calculations if we're going to go that route too. One thing we could consider is doing the calculations like you would do for greenhouse gas emissions, where you would take, like, we purchase this much from this source, which is a zero emission source, and this much from the grid, which has this applied, which would look a little different. I'd have to think more about the legitimacy of
The
that.
gist of that is like weighting by additionality and by like mix of how that's allocated. Is that the idea? The general idea
Yeah,
that you're
so
saying?
there's a frustrating thing in where greenhouse gas accounting for electricity and rec accounting for renewable energy don't align great. So if you were thinking about carbon, you would say, I buy X amount of power from this source at this emissions factor, and I buy this amount of electricity from this source for this emissions factor. So this kind of gets to, Erica, what you were talking about with we're subtracting the kilowatt hours from on-site, and then, you know, maybe your community solar, and then the rest comes from the grid at whatever the grid rate is. It doesn't technically work, I think, with the community solar and the RECs because that's grid delivered. It's a weird accounting thing where on-site and grid delivered is different. And really the idea is that because you rely on the grid delivered, you rely on a system that still relies on fossil fuels. And so they don't want to exclude that entirely.
I don't want to complicate this further, but for a building like the community center here that has solar on top, and Excel is tracking the use, as well as the town of Nederland as an entity is signed up for a solar garden with Oak Leaf Solar, who are how is the renewable energy from this building being accounted for? Because in that we would want to show in our spreadsheet both the solar coming from Oak Leaf Solar as well as the solar coming directly from the rooftop.
You broke out just a little bit there, but my understanding of your question is that you're asking how we account for on-site solar and subscription solar for your community building. Is that right?
Yes, especially when the subscription the town is subscribed to. Also, we do not own the RECs as the town of Nederland.
Right. So if you have a community solar subscription, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's really more like a power purchase agreement, for, you know, lack of a better word. And so if you don't owe the RECs there, then from a renewable energy accounting standpoint, that counts just as like standard grid mix power. And because the RECs are, again, included in the grid mix already. And then your on-site is going to be a net meter, probably, unless you have some sort of different rate.
What we could do is we could calculate the kilowatt and the degradation for how long these panels been up for a few decades, right? Like 15 years?
I think as long as the fair sells, so 15 years.
Yeah. So we could do like an annual estimate, figure out like the average of what they're producing. And then I'm thinking outside the box. Like, Becca, I think what's going to be important is from the beginning, the conversation has been that 80%, that 20% gap that we're going to have inevitably because of where technology is, especially because we had this goal so soon, right? 2025. We've talked about doing REC offsets. And so I think it needs to be like a grab bag of things for Nederland. Because I'd be curious to look at what 20% of Nederland's overall use is and what that would cost for RECs annually. Because I bet we could fundraise for that pretty easily.
Are we talking about town infrastructure or
Like the whole mix? So like
including
our
residential?
full portfolio, we look at the community solar, we look at the solar awards, we look at the non-solar awards. The other thing I hadn't thought about is because we have such a high on-site rooftop solar, could we also get some percentage back for the lack of transmission degradation through the lines? Have you guys had communities explore that? Because that's like what, 7.5%?
Yeah, you would. No, I don't think, well, I'd have to think more about that.
I don't know that
'Cause
that's
you're-
I've never heard of that being done before.
Because you're metering it at this point of view. So all that other stuff is kind of upstream and not attributed necessarily to the town. It's the scope 3. Well, that's counting. I'm going to say probably not. The other thing I just want to caution you is as you're thinking about how to hit this goal, if you're saying that RECs don't matter in generation, buying RECs again is a little bit problematic because, you know, in theory, you could buy the RECs you've already sold for your community solar and be double counting that same power supply. So if you're going to go with, you know, additionality, I think you need to stick with that for how you hit your goal.
But that's what RECs are, right? Like you are taking those off the market.
But we didn't pay, like the community solar garden, someone else took those racks off the market. And so like, renewable energy certificate. It's like it's the green attribute of the power you're buying.
They have a negative value. Very fascinating.
Yeah. I think I think if we're like, I don't see, it'd be really hard to close the gap without RECs, I think, to get like,
yeah,
just period. And I recognize the scene, I can't wrap my head around it. If we move to RECs, counting community solar, which we don't own the RECs for, that's just a PPA, and then buying RECs to close the remainder. I from an accounting perspective, I would want to buy RECs to cover the community solar as well. I'd want to have that attribute because it's like.
So most of those though are, like she's saying, are owned by Excel. And these solar companies, in order to get their projects online and on grid, it's because they're working through the programs with Excel, where Excel owns the RECs.
Yeah,
Erica,
right.
do you know how Lions got to 100% renewable?
Their utility.
So
They-
it's all,
They make their own power.
No, MEMA, right? What is it? Municipal
Yeah,
energy.
so the
Nebraska?
utility,
They
So-
make their own power. It's municipal utility.
So their
It's a
utility
municipal
just gave them
utility.
100%. And this whole conversation with Excel started with like, hey, why don't you guys just give us just 100% renewable energy? And they said, if we were to do that for you, we'd have to do it for everyone, and we can't do that, and that's not socially equitable. It's a conversation I remember.
okay.
right.
Yeah.
And then there is some, I'm not involved, but I think Boulder's in some of those discussions still, maybe kind of, but it might not be happening. But I think even if you look at it from a utility perspective, the way that they are giving 100% renewable energy to Lions is by basically purchasing the RECs and they're retiring them on their behalf.
Right. And that's why they can complain or can not complain. That's why they can say that they're getting 100% renewable energy without like a caveat to it because it's still RECs.
And that's like net, not 24/7.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Love
So
it.
here's another can of worms, and I know you all have heard this, but at the beginning of this conversation, City of Boulder told us, well, Barker Reservoir would produce about 98% of the energy that the town of Nederland would need. And it's hydropower and it is renewable. And we could just sell that to you guys for wholesale. And then, you know, our conversation was, well, let's start an account, let's save up the difference between, you know, market and whatever savings we could have, and then we start to wean ourselves off by creating solar farms. So there, this is like a really interesting conversation.
I think the hurdle there was that we'd have to talk Excel into letting us
Yes.
switch that over to our infrastructure and have it be.
Because Excel is the only buyer and the only seller of energy in our area.
Right.
So Boulder, the city of Boulder owns a handful of hydro power plants, And they have to sell that energy to, I think it's Tri-State, because they're not allowed to produce and sell electricity per selling.
Because of Excel torch.
So
Yep.
do we want to decide at this meeting or another meeting how we want to go forward, like with either counting the recs or extrapolating the data and then going with 100% renewable in terms of recs, but 100% renewable in terms of what Nederland is like subscribed to and additionality. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say personally that I think we focus on additionality. That's what the spreadsheet was designed for. And that where we can pull out Netherlands specific data into its own line, we do so. And if that means we have to subtract it elsewhere to not double count it, that's fine. And not so much focus on Rex right now, and we'll come up with a really crafty way to talk about it when we get wherever we're getting.
I agree with the additionality, like as a framework. I think that puts us like we need to figure out a way to get to 100 with it, like from our additionality metric that doesn't involve buying Rex, I think.
And
Or someone needs to explain to me how we can count additionality in like non-rec like PPA arrangements, how we can count that as additionality, but then we can also count additionality of buying back the Rex unless we buy back enough Rex to cover the volume that was produced by those PPAs. I don't know
So
that
you're in favor of additionality.
I am with the like there's this gap that we have to figure out fill.
Oh,
Here's another question though. So background Abby, if we were to wait for 2080 when Excel's 80% renewable source, would our additional programs be enough to get us to 100%? 2030.
Oh, okay.
There's, so that's what I said, 2030, they're going to be 80%.
I think that blank spreadsheet should show, like that blank column for that year should show what our gap is.
Because the initial goal term was 2030.
Well, obviously, we're not doing it for 2025, in 2025.
Right, because it is 2025.
On the record, it's Chris's fault.
I think this could be a really like interesting discussion to dig into in a subcommittee meeting as well. Because there's a lot of pieces and like
Yeah.
I think like having the history of how we were thinking about this in the past, and then B, looking at like the issues that are brought up here and like having the time to put it on a whiteboard and draw some overlapping circles would be really helpful, because I think that would be, I'm sorry, that's not a, we have to know.
Renewable energy that was defunct, but
We've
Yeah.
an energy subcommittee now.
yeah.
I mean, we're done with the concept paper, so now we can focus on something else.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So then here's another can of worms, like really, we could just transition this whole conversation to beneficial electrification and transition from gas.
I feel like, yes,
I'm more hesitant to open up
But-
that can.
but let's not do that right now. But I do want to hear from everybody, so I guess, Rich, do you have a general opinion on? Okay, that's okay.
What can we give you guys to help support that conversation about how you want to fill the gap?
What?
I think Barker Reservoir is probably not additional. It's existing infrastructure.
But it's not owned by Excel.
And it would be like the ultimate because we would have all
The
We did
power
transition.
gone.
Is nobody buying Rex from Barker?
Where does that electricity go now?
it goes to Tri-State. They can't use that power. They have to sell it to Tri-State.
Tri-State, okay. Right.
Yeah,
What does
so
this mean?
so Tri-State is using it in their rec accounting.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Sorry.
we still have to consider Rex to some
Which is
degree,
what?
even if we aren't
It's not the exact word.
trying to claim 100% renewable from Rex. That's, I mean, if we're going to, because we basically.
For the power sources
Mhm,
that we're getting their information in terms of only the rec energy they claim,
mhm.
yes.
Right.
Other than that, we don't care about tracking recs ourselves.
Because,
Even though I
like-
don't understand what that means, it makes a lot of sense.
So I think in general, like, we just don't want to double count kilowatt hours. So
Yeah.
any way that we can like not double count kilowatt hours, but still determine how much Nederland is using of renewable energy, then that's the way forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that feel clear?
We asked you a question too.
Are we?
So
Okay.
Cass and Becca and Abby.
I think we'll need to do a bit of just like playing with the spreadsheet and figuring out the specifics of that. And I might bring some things to the next meeting and just say, like, this is, what we worked on.
Yeah.
And present that specific piece now that we've had this conversation.
If you
Okay.
guys could also bring to us, like, what is illegal about saying Netherlands 100% renewable energy and then having a disclaimer that says we prioritize additionality because it's equity based, because it's moving the needle, all those things. Like, who would we actually get in trouble with?
But if we,
I mean, it's not a legal commitment. No one's going to sue you for it. I mean, you're not legally bound to hit that goal. But when it's just that the term renewable energy has a legal connotation. And so when people see 100% renewable energy goals, they usually associate that with the legal term for it. So if you shifted to language around clean energy, that does not have the same connections, and you wouldn't have the misunderstanding there if you use terms like clean energy instead of renewable energy.
Clean energy is a trademark. Okay.
Are we actually announcing that we've met the goal?
right now,
No. Then maybe we should contemplate announcing where we act towards the goal. I mean, I don't want to get in that discussion now, but I think it's helpful to begin thinking about what that looks like. Like you said, you have some language you can bring back to us from Boulder or Denver. It would be good
Yeah.
to look at how they're talking about it, and maybe we come up with something different. But
I just heard
Okay.
clean diesel. Yeah.
yeah,
Let's not go to the clean energy.
don't you love clean coal?
Clean natural gas, like, no thanks.
how many more slides do we have, Becca?
Just 2, I think.
Okay, do we want to
2 or
finish
3.
this up?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, I think this can be quick because basically we've talked about this a little bit. Tracking on-site solar PV is a little bit tricky. So we had different numbers from every source. We looked at Netherlands PV permit data and got a different number. So so basically the story is we have 3 different numbers that we could use for PV. Some people track participation, so we know like the number of homes in Netherlands that have net metering. The community energy report is showing just under 325 kilowatts installed that does not use solar rewards. Your permit data suggests that 145 kilowatts have been installed. We don't know the breakout of solar rewards or not from that data. And that's showing permits that have been completed. So it's possible that some permits that are still outstanding, the solar's online, but the permit hasn't been finished for whatever reason. This is only about 2% of total Netherlands energy usage, which is high for on-site, but it's not the biggest chunk of your renewable energy.
But we have some people that are building solar systems without permits. I think is what that's showing.
How would?
I don't know.
Contractor with a license would do it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That would be surprising.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the case. So is this, so when it says permit data and community energy reports, you're talking about only new solar that was installed in 2023?
No, this is cumulative.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
what I'm wondering is if our permit data doesn't include a lot of the older systems like the carousel, the community center, et cetera, whereas the community energy reports do.
Yeah, Britt, what is the earliest year that we have permit data for? Do you remember?
2016.
data-
Carousel was
yeah.
2010.
Oh, okay, well, that might have.
Did you
Okay.
say what is the year we have the earliest data for?
The year.
In community core, it goes back to like 2008, and then we have some older ones in property files.
And we can do more digging because this only shows to 2016, so we can we can go back into those other permits.
Yeah.
It's just, I think a lot of them aren't specified as PV
Yeah,
because that permit type came later. So we'll have to go through other permits that we don't know if they're PV or not, just to check.
Oh, for sure. And there's houses that are gonna have solar on them since 1976 that haven't necessarily gotten a new system as well, that are not gonna be in there.
I don't know if that's
Right.
valuable. I think that's good.
And
No,
it's,
that's what my
And that's
question
about
was.
percentage.
So my question was gonna be, should we then go with the number from the community energy reports? Instead of trying to sift through permit data?
I think we can assume that's more accurate.
We're using numbers from them already, so.
right. Make sure data source consistent. It happens to be the biggest one, so that's also a bonus. But that was our thought too, is that just be consistent, use that number. Make sure you're pulling the cumulative for both residential and commercial, and you should be good.
Minor point of discussion for how
Yeah.
we handle. I think it'd be crazy to discount, to not include degradation in terms of this is 2% of total energy consumption. Sorry, did you get to that 2% by like some kind of back of the envelope or like projection from like NREL data, or?
That's in our spreadsheet.
Okay,
in our
cool.
tracking
Yeah, okay,
spreadsheet.
great.
Yeah.
So like we don't necessarily need the vintages of those. There's a bunch of systems out there that are producing approximately X, and we don't
Right.
need like. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because we don't have orientation or age or any of that. That would give us more accurate data than the estimate that's being used. Yeah.
And I think the takeaway here is 2% of total energy consumption. That's not worth our time to calculate. Great. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
And then the question comes when you guys are discussing your goal on what you do with the solar rewards PV, but that's available in the community energy report as well. So, all right. So it sounds like we'll provide you guys with the baseline energy data with the additional user included. We'll move to using PV from the community energy report. That will increase there. And then some further discussion required on how we talk about your goal and how RECs are considered in that discussion. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Abby and I will bring you guys some language from Boulder and Denver and like what the numbers would look like under certain conditions to help inform those decisions.
Becca, what percentage is rooftop solar like generally?
Oh, I don't have the total here, but I think for you guys, oh, yes, I do. So if I look at on-site solar for solar rewards and non-solar rewards. Oops. I'm getting like 407 kilowatt hours, which seems small. They must be using a different factor than you guys are. You guys are mostly non-solar rewards rooftop, but it's 4%. No, I'm doing that math bad because it's less than 1%, like 0.5%.
Okay, all right.
But that's just grid exports from those systems.
That's estimated generation from those systems.
Estimated generation. Okay.
Yep.
Not
Yep.
Okay, that's helpful.
Right. Okay, so all this data is in the PowerPoint. I also included some backup slides around programs and stuff. If you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to dig in. And then Cass and Abby and I will reconvene and provide some more info on your goal.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here.
So
All right.
did that get rid of a quorum?
No.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I don't know. I literally talked to Rob on the phone and he said he was gonna be here. He also just got laid off, unfortunately. Yeah.
Ouch.
Ugh.
Okay. Well, that took an hour. Anything else on that before we?
Process for figuring out closing the gap. If there's anything that Sab wants to talk about, discuss at length.
Say we delegate that to your committee.
Great. I think if we're going to delegate it to our committee, we should bring in. We need to draft someone who has the context already.
Yeah, I'm happy to
That would be awesome.
be there.
Um,
'Cause I've been on a lot of these high goals. They did. Well, we can
report.
bring it to the subcommittee and go over a few things. I think one question I had up in the air was that Boulder County is still selling solar garden subscriptions through the energy outreach office that are the low income ones. And so what company are they working with? And do they have solar garden subscriptions to sell that we could try to get folks in Netherlands signed up for? I mean, I know it's but every 10 households helps, you know?
So we have to really who the contact would be. Miles, maybe? You would know. But anyone that is already eligible for LEAP and weatherization assistance and other like utility billing support should qualify for that, right?
I qualify for it. You, even more people do. It's if you make 80% of the median income for your household. Yeah. So if you qualify for any of the like home things that they do on the sliding scale, then you should qualify for this.
That's a good idea.
Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is the continuation of the discussion we had at the very, very end of last meeting about pursuing some sort of statement around climate change goals, given the current federal administration and what is all going on. And I know there was some hesitancy over referencing the Paris Accords, and I think I would still like to see us do something ask the BOT to pass some sort of statement. And if it has no connection to the Paris reports directly, I'm still fine with that and would like
Chair
to
Baumhofer.
pursue that. But how's everybody else feeling?
I'm gonna ask John to talk now because they did something like that at the BOT meeting.
Okay.
They reaffirmed, I don't know if you remember in 2017 when it happened before, they wrote a resolution in support of the Accords and they reaffirmed that resolution on last Tuesday's meeting. So they have made a statement of support for specifically for the Paris Climate Accords and the impact of climate change. I can put a link to the resolution in the chat here in 1 second.
Okay. So I guess
do you
that
guys
covers
have any?
it then.
Yeah, do you guys have any questions about it other than looking at the resolution?
I just think it's kind of unconstitutional, but since it's just a useless gesture anyway, it doesn't really matter. You know, the Constitution is pretty clear that the federal government is the sole entity that can engage in foreign relations, and states and cities can't. So, I mean, we couldn't do a treaty with anybody. But it's a toothless, useless thing anyway, so.
Well, here's an idea. Do you guys want to write a resolution? A one-page resolution and just kind of combat some of the things that have already happened that go against Netherlands' vision and a lot of the resolutions we've already adopted. So like gutting the EPA, even just the American
National parks,
the national parks,
Forest Service,
forest service.
wildland firefighters.
Right, we could put it all in there, like whereas these
Yeah.
things are, you know, and it would take some time, it would take some effort, we have to get it to the lawyer for review.
That's what the point is. It's not gonna accomplish it. No one's gonna read it, no one's gonna care, and it's not gonna result in any action by anybody. It's, in my opinion, a waste of time.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I think that there are a lot of people that would be really hopeful and would find support in something like that coming from the town. And I could also see within like nearby municipalities also like leaning into that too. Like, okay, here's something that we can rally. I haven't heard of anyone doing something like that yet. It's only been just over a month. But Project 2025
Rally
is
to what?
real.
Rally to what? The administration in Washington is not gonna care what we, any other town says about it. They're just not. So that's why I say it's a useless gesture.
Yeah, and I think where I see it more from is garnering that kind of community activism spirit and momentum, and more so that kind of effect than actual legal effect. Does that make sense?
My opinion is overestimating the amount of reaction that members of the community are gonna have to revolutions by town governments. I just don't think they care. I think that because we're involved in the SAP subcommittee and we're sort of associated with town government, we think people out there are, you know, leaning on our every word, and they're not. And I think that we would be much better off spending our time on things where we can actually have an actual impact on the community, rather than sort of this idea of.
Is
Chair Melody.
Yeah.
One note, the board did pass a resolution of support for the town, and one thing that you guys could do is continue monitoring the situation and see if there's like further action that is helpful. The chat is turned off, but I'm happy to, it's on the Civics Web website, the new resolution. It's basically the same as the one from 2017. Or if maybe one of you all, you want to come and talk to the board about this too, we could put an agenda item with the board just to kind of discuss this conversation that you guys are having and whether, you know, further action is needed as a town. And so I'm just kind of throwing those out there just in case they're helpful.
Yeah, I think right now we're trying to discuss if there is something that we'd want to bring forward to the BOT. So I don't know if we're ready to go on the BOT schedule right now. It would be great to have a work session with the BOT at any time. It's been several years. But yeah, I think that's the discussion we're having right now is there something that we want to bring forward to the BOT? What would it look like? And I don't think that we'll have that answer tonight.
Could also do something like the DOT to sort of Paris climate accord for the constant business declaration.
My question was going to be, has CC4CA been working on any specific statements in reaction to federal funding and this kind of topic?
I wasn't able to go to the last board meeting, but.
Yeah.
I
You know, because to Rich's point, that's where our community say might have the most impact. If there were other communities in CC4CA that are all having a similar statement, going to the state government with it. But I don't know. That's just ideas.
You know, we just decided for CC4CA to postpone the policy statement update.
Yeah.
For this year. And I haven't heard anything specifically about like a legislation or resolution or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are still very much like in reaction mode.
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of things are still up in the air. We're still trying to figure out what's going to be reliable and not.
Yeah. What's going to shut down coal system?
Mm-hmm. I know I was on the board for the last time that the BOT passed this resolution, so I'm vaguely remember reading it a month or so ago after our last meeting. And I'm in support of it. I think it says a lot of good things. I think we just as a board were discussing last meeting how that might not necessarily be the best approach for the town of Nederland. So we were trying to look into what might be some other things to address. But I also understand if nobody else really feels like it's going to be worth our while. So I guess we kind of need to get a nod of heads of, do we want to keep pursuing some sort of resolution and statement or not? I would say I'm nodding my head yes.
I don't feel informed enough to understand the role a town plays in national politics, and A, what is appropriate, and B, what is effective in this space. So I will abstain, and make a note that I need to dig in and understand this better, because I've mostly focused more on this tactical level. So this is beyond my realm of experience so far.
I think I've made my views clear.
Mm-hmm. Rich is a no.
I'm flexible however you all decide. I do in my head kind of see like a project 2025 for Nederland resolution of like in defense of these things, Nederland stands by these values and this vision and this protection of our most vulnerable population, and we stand next to the equity and diversity and inclusion. We stand next to our sustainability values and pursuits that we've already identified. We stand with our federal employees at these organizations. Like I do think that would have pretty incredible impact. Haven't seen anyone do anything quite like that yet. And there's just a lot happening, and I think people in our community are pretty distraught and feel threatened.
And there was a good turnout with the congressman, right? And there are a lot of people in our community that are paying attention to this stuff. I know I just talked to one of my employees that's in his 60s, and so he's like half retired. And we're like, what have you been doing all day? He's like, I've literally been calling Republican senators. So there's more people, I think, than we realize that are kind of political.
I think the presentation was it left people with some optimism. And I think that could be the greatest value. Something from the board that's brought to the BOT. Again, it would have to go through legal.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing I picked up from his speech was that, or this talk and everything, was that If you don't say anything, that no one's gonna hear you, and they're not gonna like react to no one speaking out. But if there's a large outcry, like there was against like the founding cause, then they were
Have you guys ever held a
back because
community?
they realized this isn't a popular decision.
Have you guys ever held a
Every
community?
Go ahead.
Sorry, guys. I just wanted to know, have you ever held a community forum? There was quite a few people who attended the Joe Nagoose event. Can you hear me? Mhm. Can you guys hear me?
And it's
I have done it past.
ourselves have not held one. I want to say since we started the community agriculture subcommittee and we got the greenhouse design and the farmers market that came out, that was 2016. So we as our board hasn't necessarily held a community engagement forum, but we've held other things.
Supporting other groups, right? Like with some of the planning, the park stuff, supported that. And then with the 100% renewable energy goal, additionality goal, we did a lot of stakeholder engagement.
Yes, we did the several meetings, but that wasn't like a free-for-all community forum. I don't know how much expertise we have in that. And I think the way I see the process going in my head is we as the SAB board come with a statement of sorts. Then we schedule an info session at a BOT meeting when they can get us on a BOT agenda. And we present that draft statement to them. And then from there, the BOT would hold a public engagement and forum. We would help out with that, but really it would be a board-led effort that the SAB is kind of inspiring and supporting, not necessarily.
What was the goal?
Well, for the BOT to pass the resolution, yeah.
The impact of the resolution is a statement of values.
Like whereas the town of Netherlands envisioned 2020 established these environmental stewardship goals, whereas the Trump administration has, removed resources from many organizations that support these values that are established in 2020, in previous plans, such as the environmental, like that's, I mean, it doesn't have to be like that, but that's kind of where my brain is going.
We as a town are committing to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in accordance with renewable energy goals or whatever.
Yeah, still prioritize diversity, equity, inclusion, because I know we can't put it in federal grants, but we could put it in town inclusion. We prioritize environmental justice, like.
So like the structure of this thing is like an affirmation of current policy and feeling in light of, okay, that makes sense.
It'll be helpful to read that 2017 resolution and you'll get a feel for it. Because then it says, now be it resolved that the town of Nederland, and then whatever your decree is or whatever your statement is beyond the facts that are found all the whereas.
And what happens with a lot of these resolutions is that like our climate emergency declaration came from another community.
Yep.
So
yeah, other communities pick them up and it gains momentum.
And I don't see it as political. I see it as like denouncing specific actions that don't align with us.
So you have some specific actions, politicians. It's cool.
So maybe we don't say the Trump administration. We say
Oh yeah, that was my first edit to your statement. Is I don't even want to name he who shall not be named. The current federal administration, like
Political. Sorry, it's politics. This is all politics, and making comments on it, statements is inherently political, especially.
it is, but I also think,
Politicians, by definition, they ran for office and got elected.
That's what the 100% renewable energy poll was too.
and I think there is more space for us to be political, given the community we live in. There's a little bit more, not just awareness and understanding, but more acceptance for having a strong political stance on things.
Yeah, it's still competitive when we into politics, when we talk about the actions that we don't support.
Yeah.
Including into project.
Yep.
Well, Rob's here.
Rob.
Hey.
Hey, sorry I'm late, but I just wanted to chime in on this conversation of whether or not this would be a political statement. I think that there has been a polarization of all politics to encompass things that were previously in previous decades just differences of opinion. And I think that we can express opinions without it necessarily being a political act, and the two aren't necessarily tied at the hip, even if major media outlets want to push that narrative.
Thanks, Rob. We're having some audio issues here, so now we're going to hear you. So I'm going to try to briefly summarize what you said, which is, while there is definitely some political ties to what's going on, he does think there's a way we can say something to be not as polarizing politically and still address what's going on.
I agree. So Rob, does it sound like an advantageous use of our time?
Does it feel like a good use of our time to pursue some sort of resolution and statement in this vein, Rob?
I'm going to abstain from that.
He abstains.
Welcome to the club.
You're not going to change your mind.
I need more context. Not on this specifically, but on the law of organization affairs.
I've only seen one other, and we do have like the alternate position would be open to. So yeah.
Yeah, what do you guys think? I'm excited to hang out with you.
We're excited to have you.
Talk about energy.
Definitely. Okay, well, I would say let's end that discussion for now. And perhaps Eric and I get together and maybe put together another kind of stab at what this could look like to make more sense, so that the two members that abstained can feel like they can give a better opinion next meeting.
And again, it would be something that the SAB would vote on. And I would suggest that if we don't have unanimous consent, then we don't move it forward.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
So that it's not an individual, because I know there are high stakes. So, and then bring it to the board, the trustees.
You want unanimous consent. And therefore, I will not be around
to say no.
That is what I suggest. That is my suggestion. I may not be at the July meeting either, so that may be another opportunity.
And what if we drafted something that, resonated with you, or do you think there's edits that could be done?
It's hard for me to imagine me thinking it's anything other than a waste of time. And one thing I think is that I've been to these board of trustee meetings. They are jam-packed full of stuff, and they always go overtime, right? And they never have enough time to do the real important stuff, the nitty-gritty stuff of running the town. And I just don't like the idea of sending them something I think isn't part of that. The nitty gritty of money and budgets and getting the streets taken care of, which is, I think, their core mission. So.
What if it's not a consent? We don't talk about it during the meeting.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Do it during May, maybe July. I haven't checked July, but I think I won't be here till July. And then I won't be here to say what my opinion is. And then you have your unanimous thing, no one voted against it. They do that in Congress. Right?
And he'll be fine because he didn't spend any of his time.
I'm saying, I'm fine with doing it. You know, that's how we got unanimity on the Declaration of Independence.
I know, you're right.
There was
The moderates
I think
left the
his name was
building.
Rush, and he was one of the guys for the Pennsylvania contingent. And he was hard no on the Declaration of Independence. And Benjamin Franklin said, why don't you just find yourself indisposed to this day? And because the rest of us want to say yes. And he did, and he wasn't there. And it was unanimous with one abstention being New York. So that's how we got the Declaration of Independence. And if it works for the Declaration, then it's
For a little measly town resolution. Okay. Are we ready to move on? I sent it to you. I texted it to you.
Did you get the agenda? Yeah. It should have a join by phone number. Did you try that?
Yeah, just like automatically come up with that.
Yeah, it doesn't auto dial the stuff for you. So I think she's having to switch back and forth between screens to enter the right numbers. And I know my phone, it's like impossible to type in on my keypad and then go to another screen to look at the rest of the number. You pretty much have to write it down and then end it. It's supposed to auto dial for you. It doesn't. It just doesn't.
You need the phone conference ID. Is that, could you try it and then just look at that?
The next thing on the agenda is sustainability coordinator updates. So
Okay.
I think we can move on to that whenever you're ready. No,
Yeah.
no rush.
So if you run out of a quorum while that's going on, but we won't because
Rob's here.
Rob's here.
Cool. I'm in now too.
Okay, awesome. Hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna run through some updates. So I had brought the bag fee. I basically brought that item to the MDDA and asked them for suggestions on bringing it to businesses in the area, and they had some suggestions on just like bringing it to the newspaper. And then they were like talking about doing a bag, like creating a reusable bag and like doing that again. So there's
Like a Nederland branded reusable bag or something.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, probably.
You know, start that in like the visitor center or something.
It was, we don't have them anymore. So the way the legislation, I don't even call it right now, brain, is written is the funds that we receive are supposed to go back to projects that promote zero waste. So one of those would be to not sell reusable bags, but give away to town residents shopping bags that they could use wherever they go. There just isn't a general interest from residents in more reusable bags. Most people have them, and it's really the tourists that are our bigger issue. So I don't know how excited I am about that, but if the DDA wants to pay for it and do it, like go for
Yeah,
it.
they just talked about it as an idea, so it's on their radar.
The last ones we did for your reference said #net0.
So yeah, I'm gonna go to an economic vitality meeting, which didn't happen this month, but it's gonna maybe happen next month, and try and talk to more businesses face to face, and then continue with newspaper, email, potentially going door to door. They suggested I go door to door, but I don't know that I have the time to do that.
Door to door businesses.
Does the zero waste committee
maybe have time to maybe not hit everybody, but the bigger.
I did bring that up to them. It was like the first meeting that I went to.
That's
and
right,
They
yeah.
didn't really have anything to say about it.
Okay.
No one volunteered, so we could bring that up at the next one, and just say like, I don't have time to go to all these businesses, like, do
So
you?
It's the idea that the individuals who would do this door to door would go to a business and say, hi, I am so-and-so from the town's railway subcommittee or whatever. Here's some information for you regarding the bag situation in town.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then they would
Yes.
give them signage that they can put up, so they don't have to make their own.
Have we not mailed them something?
Need to email them.
No, like,
Yeah.
US mail, like, we have all their addresses, they have business licenses, right? So couldn't we just go and pull you would think the town has like a file of all the business licenses in town with a mailing address for all of them. Can't we just?
That's not as easy as you think, because there's a bunch of home-based businesses that are not gonna need to address.
Just sort of exercise discretion. And once you send it to them, you can think, okay, do I know that this is actually a brick and mortar place that?
Yeah.
And you know, you might think some of them, okay, maybe that one, I don't even need to, but. I don't know.
I think we need to do both. I think we need to do some sort of mailer as well as reach out in person. And I've seen it heads. People keep asking me about in regards to the market, you know, who took over for the charging 20 cents per bag.
Yeah, that's one place I need to like actually.
And we can't really tell you why the private business is choosing to charge people double. You know, maybe that's what the cost of their paper bags is. I don't know. But if they offered a compostable bag, not a standard,
Really?
not the way the law is written. If it's, what is it?
40%.
It has to be 40% post-consumer waste.
That's in the Colorado state law too.
Yeah, and so we only charge 10 though. And so then the market charges 20. And so the public is asking, why are we being charged 20 cents when the law 10? And they think that the town of Nederland is making them make it 20, but it's not us.
And they're not remitting it. Yeah. We're not.
And how about the 10?
Ownership they realize. Yeah. I'm gonna sit down with them. So moving on, I'm going to be meeting with lots of department heads and trying to figure out like areas. I've met with Dawn about the urinal situation. And we handle it. There's an issue with the urinals because they're waterless urinals and urine is
In like this building?
in this
Oh,
building.
okay, so it's not like a town-wide.
No. Just there's issues with the urinals in this
Okay,
building.
I don't even know about that. I was just thinking we were gonna go around every business.
No, sorry, yeah, it's just
Inspect their
so
urinals.
Dawn runs the community center and I'm working with her on the urinal situation here. I,
Was the leak?
no, that was something else. Someone shoved like clothing into a toilet. Probably a child. But it's
Using them all day long. uses them on property, and then it becomes issue. Urine or the designated cleaner, you will destroy all cups. You'll destroy everything. Yes.
Good heavens. This is
So I'm sitting there and I'm a guy and I got the rest of my Coca-Cola. Why not just pour it down the urinal drain? Because I need to empty it out and I'm standing right here.
I can tell you as a guy, I've never even thought about doing that in my entire life.
Yep, but this is a public building.
the super common like facilities.
Yeah. These waterless urinals are an issue. We don't deal with it at the carousel because we just have the one and we have a regular toilet next to it.
It's something that I can handle though, so I just provide a lead to you.
Thank you. Sorry, Cassie.
For USTN, the Urban Sustainability Directors Network,
Yeah.
I have gained access.
Yay.
So, yes, that's good. And we're just working on paying dues. And then finally, we just want to talk about some more of the energy improvements in rural areas. So I sent that to everyone.
Yep.
The main thing is just that it's kind of a bit more vague than we originally planned. Water infrastructure of town, because we can be a bit more general in the concept paper, and then once we start getting help from NRail, then we can be more specific and what can we actually improve. Yeah, so that has been submitted and we're just waiting to hear back on an encouragement or discouragement notice. And then the other big thing is just that we're not sure this grant is even going to be like funded in the future with the whole just uncertainty.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So it's submitted, it's a step in that direction. And it's something that we can use if we want to do a grant that's state led or something, but could fund a project like this. Yeah, Jack, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's great. I think it's a pretty, like, a lot of work was like.
I thought it was really strong.
Yeah, a lot of valuable preparatory work has gone into it, or is available or gets encouraged or discouraged.
In there, I think is just bolsters it that much more. So great job, guys.
Yeah, and Rob as well, just want to acknowledge him. But yeah, so that was it for my updates.
I am happy to help walk around to businesses and talk to businesses about plastic bags. Was there any, and maybe you just don't have time, and was there any ability to schedule like a group viewing session for the Colorado Green Business Network kickoff event? Actually got tickets. I'm actually just going to go down on Tuesday.
Sorry, schedule a.
In the Colorado Green Business. That event together to understand how they get certified, what the program can offer them, etc.
Yeah, I have not done anything on that yet. But now that I have more time, I will look into that.
It's Tuesday.
Again. Oh.
Getting signed up to be a certified green business. Be sure to attend the kickoff event on Tuesday. Or if the NDDA even could send out that information to members or something.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely.
Just letting them know it's happening. Because that's where they'll get help for signing up and everything. Any other questions for Cass?
Yeah, can I just plug one thing?
Same.
Yeah,
The audio is
Erica.
kinda choppy. I was just gonna, oh, there's a moose right in front of me. Danger, danger. Woo, okay. All right, he's off the road. I was just gonna plug Pace. So if you guys do the door to door for the businesses, I would touch base with Matt Hannon and see if there's anything else you can plug for businesses at the same time. They're doing some really cool additional rebates and incentives for businesses to electrify and other things right now. So it might just be feeding two birds with one stone if you can include that as well.
Matt from Pace. I think he said he was willing to help out because he's already going to businesses to bring them plastic bag
Right, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And we're actually due for a meeting with him anyway.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Erica.
Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is subcommittee updates. We're going to see how fast we can get through these. As far as the Cross Gold Mine, I sent along an email that was linked to a press release. Beyond the public notice that is printed in the Mountaineer, that's really the only thing that I've seen so far regarding that, and it's clearly written from the point of view of Grand Island Resources. And so I guess what I would propose, and I've reached out to a few organizations, I just haven't heard back yet, is I would like to see us, this is another thing where we come up with some sort of simple draft comment and go to the BOT and ask if it's an official comment that the BOT and the Sustainability Board can make, and if we want, and how they feel about presenting that as the public to make comments too. So my biggest concerns with the permit they filed is and the request to start refining metals on site. So currently they're not allowed to refine any material up there. It all has to be shipped out elsewhere to another facility to refine. And part of what they're asking to do is refine things on site up there, which actually is probably even more of a concern to me than the expansion of acreage. It's a 900-page application or 700 pages or something, so it's not easy to dig through. And what the comment would be really regarding is anything that we felt like was a good enough pull in regards to what is required from them as a mining operation. So a lot of things, especially being the Sustainability Board, that we might look at is, do they have adequate measures in place for mitigating environmental disasters in the case some refining material in a pond of sewage, or not sewage, sludge, a pond of whatever tailings, breaks and gets into the watershed. What are their mitigations in place for things like that? And we would have to dig into their application and look at what are the things that are not suitable, and that we don't. It is the link in the agenda.
I can provide some updates if you'd like on the project, some more information. The Board of Trustees is going to submit comments as well. And so there is going to be an item on this at the Tuesday meeting. And one of the things that's helpful is to have as many people at that meeting as possible to make sure comments are reflected from the community. The mine is what's called a DMO, which is a designated mining operation. And that's because the state will require them to have more stringent environmental controls on site. The question is whether or not they adequately meet that requirement. The big issues, I think, are what you mentioned, Melody, and there's also some other things. They're using a mining practice called stoping. And one of the things that we know about this mineral belt, it is within just a few miles of the Clear Creek, Gilpin County Superfund site. And we know this mineral belt has a significant amount of heavy metals and rare earth minerals in it. And so what can happen with stoping is the rock is fractured and it can make water come out of the ground in weird and funny places. So they do have a water treatment facility that they have kind of installed on the site, but there are some significant questions, and I apologize, I don't know the name of the mine that Boulder County just purchased, but there's a Boulder tunnel in there, and there are some concerns that the water may move through the ground in ways that is not predictable and won't be able to be cleaned, especially given the expansion of the site from 9 acres to 209 acres. So those are some of the concerns that have come up. The other thing is that road is not designed for a level of traffic that can handle it. It's a, they cannot take big trucks up and down it now. And so that's been one of the concerns of the neighbors. I have, and I apologize, the chat's not working, but I can send this to all of you in the morning. There are designated criteria that they are considering for concerns. And one of the things that we can do that is helpful to the community is ask for a hearing. There is a evidentiary process that is required, and it's same like as a civil case. So we have to prove that there's something happening, but there are certain questions that we can ask relevant to this process that are helpful. And I would be happy to send them. Maybe I could send them to Cass, and then Cass, you could send them to everybody. But one of the things that would be helpful is that we've talked to the city of Boulder and Boulder County and some of the other stakeholders in the community. And one thing that is helpful is to have as many letters as possible. So if SAB would be willing to write a letter in conjunction with the town letter, and they can be the same, it helps with the engagement. And then the other thing is just making sure folks know what's happening and what the criteria are for the decision and some of the concerns that may arise just based on the operations. And so, Cass, I can send you my aim for Tuesday, and I can send you some of the things that the draft letter that I have been working on. And then we are trying to get more comments in there and refine them. And then we'll continue working with City of Boulder and Boulder County on these issues so that we can put a good answer in. One final note, this went to the paper, the Mountaineer. It was published on the 20th, I think was the first published date. They have to publish it in 4 consecutive papers, and then there's 20 days to respond. And I do not know the date of that off the top of my head, but that's the final date for public comment.
26th, I think, March 23rd or March 26th, something like that, would be 20 days
right
after the last. Yeah.
Okay. So anything you guys can provide on your specific expertise would be helpful, because we really, what you don't want to do is put comments out there that aren't relevant or not important for this process. And I think that having you guys, the help there and making sure that we're coordinating all those efforts would be amazing.
Yeah, we have, I don't think you were here, Jonathan, when all this went down, but we had, what we passed was the rights of nature, and then we rescinded that resolution. And now the Netherlands SAB unofficially has the Natural Environment Delegates Subcommittee, which is kind of the same as what the Rights of Nature Subcommittee was getting at. And so I think this is kind of a good venue to understand how this process works alongside the BOT, because I'd like to be really involved in that. Part of what I did in my college degree was studying these kinds of public comment periods and the environmental analysis, and how you can take the EIS that's submitted by the operation and actually look at the pick it apart and find the pieces to comment on that they're actually going to listen to. So I'd really love to have us involved in that more so. And have you guys reached out to the Boulder Watershed Collective?
Yes, they've been contacted. I think they're going to do a similar letter to the rest of the crew. And I'd be happy to involve you in.
Yeah, I would think that our letter would want to align with theirs as well. They're going to be the most probably expert knowledgeable about some of those things.
That was actually going to be my question. Is like, where do we look for like professional or expert reviews? I can look at a 900-page document, but like, I'm not an environmental engineer. And while the company that put it together, I'm sure is quite professional, it's good to have a second and third party eyes when you're assessing that. So
yeah,
the
definitely.
watershed, you said the Boulder County Watershed.
Boulder Watershed Collective, I think is what they're called.
That's correct. The city of Boulder too, that Barker Reservoir, the impacts on Barker are significant potentially, and it doesn't really, it's not our watershed, but it's their watershed, and we do have water storage there, so there's an angle. Cass, I just sent you my staff report for it, and it has the decision criteria, which I think are a good starting point. And then I can send out the link to the file repository, but there's just a lot. But you can see there's some really helpful maps that you can see the expansion of the site and some of the things they've done for the water treatment.
The creek that comes down Caribou Road right there comes by the Quick Mart on 2nd Street and then goes into the reservoir. That's the stream that's going to be affected by those lines up there.
I'm just
Yeah.
going through this application and I'm sure it's so long.
Yes.
And it's a very big addition of land that they want to use. But
yes.
What are they? I mean, it's not like a strip mine, right? And it's all underground mining. So what do they want to use this land for?
So he was explaining, what did he call it? Stope mining?
It's stope mining. It's like hard rock mining.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that doesn't take 200 acres. So they're going to put in tailings, or they're going to, or is it just a sort of a big number that covers the total area of all their activities, even though they won't be using all that area?
It could be both. And I think largely it's the underground drifts that they're opening up and how that works. But that is where there could be a concern, is because of the rock fracturing. So you're opening up more rock for the water to filter through. And I think the big question is does their materials management plan account for that, what happens in the rock in our region or not? And I think that's like, because they have a treatment facility that they're going to be sending water through. But if that water gets into other mining tunnels and things like that, which we know it possibly may, that's where there may be some challenges of just managing water. And then the EPA, things like lead concentrations have gone down significantly. So there's really small amounts of lead that actually are regulated now. And so if that water starts coming out in different properties, it could create impacts for property owners in the area potentially. And so I think it's issues like that we need to better understand, like what are the actual activities, where are these drifts going to be, and how does it affect the watershed? I think those are the really primary questions.
Yeah, one thing I've heard from Grand Island Resources in the past is they want to make mining sustainable again. They want to make it environmentally friendly, and that is their goal. And their last application had some newer technologies that the folks in charge down at the Division of Mining said, I don't know about this. This isn't a proven way to mine yet. So I know that there was concerns in the past about their operations, and that was partially why they wanted a full new application here as well. So there may be some attempted greenwashing going on by Grand Island Resources in that document. Is there anybody who wants to dig into this with me? And I guess, John, what do you want from us as SAB members? How can we best kind of connect on next steps here?
I would be happy to meet with anybody who would like to. It would be helpful. And then having comments at the Board of Trustees meeting as well, if there is anybody has the time for that on Tuesday, because that's a written record or a recorded record. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is document public concern about this, because the public engagement is an important piece here. And then in terms of the letter, I have kind of drafted an initial one, and it doesn't have all the concerns in it, but it does have the decision criteria. And so I think that's the next step, is making sure that we have a reasonable case to be made here about what our expectations are that get answered in relation to the operation. But if you guys are open to having a meeting or something next week, I'm pretty available, and I'd be happy to meet anybody or everyone or however that could work.
Would you want that before the bot meeting on Tuesday?
It could be, if it works for you. I'm happy to schedule it like along those lines, but what we'll be doing is collecting those comments, and then I think the question, you guys will have another meeting before that deadline then, I guess.
Yeah.
right? Okay, so maybe you guys, I
Yeah.
don't know if the working group for SAB could like draft a letter
28th.
too, based on those same comments, or if you guys want to, how you guys might want to manage that part.
Third or anything that we submit to the BOT for us to submit it
Okay,
as a separate board
yeah, they just told us that the more comments, the better,
and whatever.
but yeah, you're probably right though.
Is Boulder County planning on? They must,
I'm sure we're having connection issues here.
looking at this map that they provided, and I, sort of seen their special report. There are a lot of mining claims up there that seem to be owned by people other than Grand Island, and like right next to this.
Mm-hmm.
These people, I don't even know why they own like 5 and 10 stores. They're gonna be objecting, they need to be notified. Or maybe they support them, I don't know. I've never really heard of any of these people. So like, these are all different owners of these mining claims, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Grand Island, most of them.
Yep. I mean, I know I heard Hendricks talk before he died that there's millions of dollars of gold up there. It's just a matter of, is it legal to get to?
It's not Placer Gold. It's not. It's
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that easy.
So, it looks like the disturbances, for lack of a better word, are gonna be, but behind the fence up by that closed area where you can't get to,
Mhm.
and sort of on that other side of the hill. Can't get to either side because they have it closed off. It's not gonna be like easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you put zone up,
Yeah.
take a look at it. Not gonna show you much this time.
Riley lives right across the street from me. We could ask him and give us a tour up there.
Well, they probably would.
That's what I mean.
I know this is probably not really all that significant, but back a couple years ago, there was this big controversy about who was the actual owner of this company.
Yeah.
And, there were, I don't know what the truth is, but there were comments that it could possibly be owned by foreign country. Do we know who owns it?
Grand Island Resources itself has one owner that has a very odd name that seems like it's a foreign investor, but Grand Island Resources is owned by another company that does have some foreign investment. I'm not sure it's clear how much. But what's the name? It's in that the email that I sent that has the press release.
Yeah.
Tells you who the parent company is.
Okay.
And it's the parent company that has this big old push of, we're going to make mining environmental again. So I don't know how I feel about it. Well, what I would really like to see is us do something. I'll try to connect with John because I know we're having communication issues here. I definitely want to meet with him. Does anybody else want to?
I'll
Be-
try. I need
Okay.
a deadline to make sure I read the paper.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. So we'll want to public notice it. Yeah, I think this is worth a special meeting.
One bite. Yeah.
You guys can count me in as well.
I'll figure out with John what we can do.
You could invite them to attend the meeting.
Yeah.
We could ask questions.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to. at the first one,
I was gonna say, I would like to meet with folks.
just us internally talking, yeah.
Throw back to college days is the last time I did this kind of environmental work
Mhm.
in the broadest of senses.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's something that is gonna have a seriously drastic impact on the town of Nederland. Are we gonna become a mining community again where there's 206 acres of stuff being mined up there and 100 workers in the town of Nederland that work up there at the mine, you know, or it's just such a big change from what we've
You know how
had.
many workers are on it?
No. I know they tried to bring on a crew of about 20 a few years ago, and they basically got a slap on the wrist, tisk tisk, hey, you guys can't be doing this much up here. Your permit does not allow for all these people and all this work to be going on. I think that was the same year, was it 2019, when they got cited for issues in discharging and the levels of discharge in the water in the stream in the creek. They were cited for being in non-compliance. And so they lowered it again. But
Let's assume it's gonna be fine. That's the-
mhm,
that's what happened.
yeah. Well, and that's kind of where, so I think this is just another stepping stone on the journey we've been on, is they have been getting denied because they wanted to expand without having to officially expand, and now we're here. They're going through the official process is kind of one of our last stepping stones to try to prevent it from expanding if that's what we want.
I'm really more concerned about, I seem to remember when I moved up here and this was sort of going on as a controversy. And they were threatening to be litigious against the town or town officials. I think they claimed that there was like some poster campaign or something going on where they were claiming people from the town were putting up flyers or something.
I think that's what I'm referring to. I think that was the same period. So they were doing more work up there than they were supposed to, and they got fined by the state, by the EPA for discharging the water above levels.
The reason I asked that is since they have indicated an inclination
Mhm,
to sue people,
mhm,
to cost them, for lack of a better
mhm.
term, in the past, I would think that we want to be as careful as is feasible.
Yeah.
To stay on the side of what we're protected from lawsuit, like, you know, speaking up, I think at a legislative hearing, like a town meeting, is something that you can't be sued for.
Mhm.
I think, I'm not positive, I don't know what, if you testify in front of Congress, it can't be.
Yeah, and so this statement we're submitting is an official comment in the Colorado State mining operation, so it would fall under, I think, those same
Yeah.
protections.
But I think that we want to be careful that we stay within that. And don't, and try to be as strict as possible in staying within official business and not go beyond that. With dealing with these particular-
And it sounds like they've got the lawyer involved
Yeah,
here.
Tom, did
Can you
provide an
guys hear me
alternative-
okay? I'm
Yeah, we
sorry,
can.
Cass, I didn't mean to. Okay. There is some very specific criteria for the case. It's a quasi judicial decision similar to what Planning Commission does. And so the key is that the comments and concerns need to stay aligned with the criteria for decision making. And that's how the decision will be most effectively made.
Actually, it's more one. If we stay-
There's moose all over up there. Moose just are invasive.
They burn themselves. They're invasive.
Colorado doesn't count them as invasive. So to the official state of Colorado, yes, they count. To me, a little less.
I go up there every week. So
Yeah.
So what are,
I've never seen a moose.
Really?
Flat. You know, I've seen a moose like her with flats.
In the,
Flats, but not up by the mine.
This flats uphill in
No, flats is downhill of the mine to the north.
really?
Yeah.
So the 505 that goes both ways, if you go towards Rainbow Lakes, all on the left-hand side of the trail, that's all wetlands. That's what I'm talking about. That's where.
But like up actually by the mine, up on the hill, I've never seen stuff there.
so what are the,
Meeting with John next week. I think that's what our next step is.
so. Let's get a little that with John then, probably.
Yeah, and with his communication things, I don't know if we can do
Can
it now
I,
on Tuesday, so I won't be able to meeting unless we meet Saturday or Sunday.
Cass,
Yeah?
can you like try to coordinate a time that works for the crew, like maybe 2 of them, and then I can just respond and then we'll schedule it?
And then 3 of us that want to be there.
And I think you absolutely.
And would you meet during the day or?
Could be anytime, but
Anytime?
that we all can do it and agree to. We just have to notice it. So we would need to, I think we need at least 24 hours notice.
We need 24 hours, yeah.
Mhm. Monday I could do like afternoon or evening, but Tuesday I can't. Tuesday I'm booked all day.
I don't have access to my calendar at this time, so
I'm cool anytime on Monday. So I'm good. Tuesday,
You do Monday at 4? Monday at 5?
I'll make it work if I can, and if not,
Say Monday at 4 p.m.
Yep.
here, or will you figure out a location and let us know?
Yes. Could potentially do it in John's office. He has like chairs, but I don't know if it's.
That
If
works.
If
That's
we meet
fine.
after 5, we could meet upstairs at the carousel too.
That sounds more fun.
We got a full room up
Okay.
there.
We're gonna go at 5 o'clock. What, do you want to have that as a public meeting upstairs at the carousel?
Oh, that's a good point, because there's gonna be more than 3 of us.
There might be. Yeah.
So
This room if it's available. If not, we might ask the library.
Great. Rab has his hand up.
Grab.
Yeah, if you guys could add me to that meeting, that would be super.
You heard that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just gonna email Sab.
Okay. It is 9 o'clock, so we are past our time. It's supposed to be done. We got a few things left. So, I would propose that I briefly update this of where we are at the scorecard and we make decisions next meeting.
So I think what we talked about was like doing, deciding on how we want to discuss the scorecard because it's
Yeah.
like, it's gonna be a bigger discussion. And so
Yep.
like, it was either we could take next month's meeting and like dedicate it to the scorecard. We could do a work session, and make it a public meeting. Or other,
I think we might even need to make that decision next month and
Okay.
talk about a larger one, maybe the month after that. So basically, with the edits that were proposed to the scorecard, I got about halfway through the other day with some of my comments and questions. I still have a lot of questions about why different things were made, and we're trying to figure out from the rest of the SAB members, what do you guys need to feel like you can make an educated decision on some of these scorecard edits?
I think I heard proposing to talk about this
Next month.
I think
Yep.
we got a lot on our plate and
Yep.
and this seems valuable, but perhaps not time sensitive.
Yeah.
So that's, I'd motion. Is this the thing we motion?
You don't need
I
that.
don't think so. No, because we're just talking about subcommittee updates here.
Brilliant.
Okay, and then zero waste subcommittee.
Yeah, so a lot of, we talked about the bag fee, and then just to give an update, the composting unit, at least this was about a month ago, but the update was that the composting unit, at the Nederland transfer station is the next project to be worked on by the Boulder County, team. So that is going, hopefully happening, and then by next week we'll have an update on like when it will become fully operational.
Okay. What I heard from Ty is that they started it, so they're working on getting all the bacteria in there to align appropriately, and then whenever it tests right, they can start accepting material into it. I think that's where they're at.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I'll try and get more info if Mikkel has any. The LED sign, we briefly talked about, that is not on the agenda necessarily for them to work on right now, but they want to put it in once the ground thaws. But we are already working on messaging and videos and things that we would want to put on that sign so that we would have those ready to go by the time it's like put in. So that's something that the Zero Waste Subcommittee has been talking about.
Great.
I'm working on compiling data to track waste. Basically just getting that data from Boulder County because they get info from all the haulers on like where they're picking up recycling and such.
Do you have information in your files from how Garrett did it?
I could look into that.
Okay, I think what we ended up doing was doing like a survey at the transfer station, like a few days, and just kind of extrapolating from there and estimating it. Because it's hard to tell just from county data what is town of Nederland and what's the rest of the unincorporated county.
Right, yeah. And I believe I talked to Bridget, and she was, based on her tracking data, she was able to tell me what she was taking from the town of Nederland versus the surrounding area. But
like municipal trash.
Yes, municipal.
Yeah.
Versus Boulder County, I don't think they're able to necessarily give me that granular data.
No.
So it's mostly just taking from them the transfer station, and then Western Disposal, I believe, tracks like waste, but again, that's.
Yes, there's Western and there's another one.
They should all report to Boulder County at least.
Yeah. I know Garrett had done that project before on establishing a waste baseline.
Okay. I definitely would be good to get that data and just like have that as like a baseline as well.
Yeah. Like I said, it was just an estimate based on a survey we did of folks up at the transfer station, but it's something, you know, something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for zero waste?
We briefly talked about the C3 grant. I went to a webinar. It's like a circular, Colorado circular economy, circular communities grant.
Yep.
I forget the name, what C3 stands for. But essentially it's like for zero waste, waste reduction projects. And so we briefly talked about that and brainstormed some ideas.
Retrack is the program Erica says.
Retrack, yeah. Yeah, that's what Boulder County uses. But we briefly talked about though just like brainstorming ideas for that. But we are going to have like a more in-depth discussion at this next meeting. Because it kind of like I want to say it was like the day of or the day before I went to the webinar, so it was very last minute. And yeah, that was it.
And the circular communities, as far as I understand, it goes a little farther than zero waste in where it's looking at like the life cycle of a product and
Yeah.
trying to keep the life cycle from beginning to end, production to waste, as closely geographically as possible.
Yeah, considering the circular economy, so like compost is a really big one for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, any questions on
Wild bear site visit. Did we ever get a?
Yeah, so I did a survey, and I got 4 responses, I'm assuming from everyone who wanted to go.
I don't remember that I saw it. Did I respond? I
It didn't tell me exactly who responded, but the date that had more votes is March 14th, so that's Friday, not tomorrow, not the next week, but the next week. So March 14th at 3 p.m. is the date and time that got the most votes. And I just need to confirm that with Wild Bear but I wanted to confirm it with SAB first before bringing it to them.
I actually can't go that day, but I've been up there, so I'm fine. You
Okay.
guys can go without me.
Rab, did you want to go to the Wild Bear tour?
Rab, did you want to go to the Wild Bear tour? I think the date that's looking best is March 14th at 3 p.m.
Yeah, I responded to the survey, so my answer should be in there, but that'll
Okay.
work for me.
It works for me.
Perfect.
Great. Okay. And then John, just one point on that. They mentioned that you're welcome, like we can invite other like BOT members or whoever wants to be on the tour, but I don't know like do we need to like post that?
Yeah,
If we
please just tell Macy and she can just post for each board. Anybody you invite, just have them posted on the wall and that's fine, even if they don't just come, but that way we're covered.
Okay, yeah, I'll have Macy post it. And then they said depending on how many people we bring, they might open it to the public as well. Just so you guys are aware of that.
And any other updates or comments from non-SAB members?
It's just the area grant.
The grant, yeah, which you sent to us.
Yeah,
Earlier today.
I kind of included that in the sustainability coordinator update, but in the future, like when we're talking about the spreadsheet and stuff, we can have the energy.
Perfect. Anything else?
Melody, I was just going to plug,
Yeah.
I have organized a GEOS Net Zero neighborhood tour in Arvada on March 7th at 1 o'clock. We did a Netherlands tour a couple years ago, and it was really well received. So if anyone would like to attend that tour, please send me an email and I'll forward the calendar invite and the details to you.
And remind me what that is again. What does the acronym stand for?
Yeah, well, I actually don't know. I think it's just called the GEOS. It probably stands for something, but the initial development was net zero and no gas. There's a lot of different versions. There's like townhomes, there's apartments, there's single family homes. Most of the bigger, homes and units have pre-drilled geothermal heating and cooling. So that's really neat. And then they come with like electric vehicle chargers and rooftop solar. They also they're designed in like a checkerboard pattern for passive solar. So it's a pretty neat design, and it's in Arvada. The second phase of the development actually does have some gas to it because it was sold from the initial developer to a new developer, and that was changed. But the initial development is really cool to see. It's a neat property.
Cool. March 7th, you said, yeah? All right. Any March 7th at 1, GEOS neighborhood tour. That's what I was trying to, like, I know she's talked about it before. Okay, net zero is. So if you're interested in that, email Erica. Anything else? We will move to adjourn the meeting at 9:14 p.m.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Yeah.
It's Erica for
The application period closes on March meeting.
I vote yes.
Any opposed? I hear none. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. No, they're making, if Erica wants the full board seat, she has to apply to that seat while it's open. And then the board decides once the period closes.
If
We did last meeting though, for this particular issue.
So we have 2 openings. If we have more than 2 applications. If it's only 2 applications, then it can go straight to the BOT. That's what makes it full.
I was gonna say, who decided that? Because that's not the way we